Welcome back to another episode of Hanging by a Thread. It's been some time. Have you missed me? This is your host, Vanessa Desir, and I'm back with another episode. Today, I will be discussing something that's near and dear to my heart because I feel like I'm still in the throes of it. This title of this episode, as you see, Post-Fashion School Depression. And today I have a special guest with me, my friend Stacy Issacs. I'll tell you a little bit about Stacy. We went to high school and to college together, both fashion schools, and we've been friends ever since. And we are, I'd like to say, cut of the same cloth in the sense that we both ain't play when it came about that fashion. And we definitely don't play now when it comes about our life and career. So I thought, who better than Stacy to have this conversation with me about the throes of fashion school and then post-grad. So please, everyone, welcome Stacy Issacs.
Hi.
The crowd goes wild. It's so good to have you today, Stacy. Thanks so much for joining me.
I'm very happy to be here.
Thanks. Okay, so we'll get right into it. So when it comes to the conversation of post-fashion school depression, I know you can remember what I was looking like walking through the hallways of F.I.T.
Girl, I know you remember me, all black, bag heavy, rulers,
Honey.
L-square, French curve.
Literally L-square French curve poking out your bag on the train, all right? My hair wasn't done. I swear that had to be like the longest years of my life. I went without my hair being done.
Me, I
Just
always had my
going to school.
synthetic wig on deck. Some curly, none that needed to look too clean and polished because I wasn't combing that shit. I needed to pop that cap up when I got in the door at home to sew some more and pop that cap back on when it was time to leave in the morning.
Yes. So like, I remember because like there was an ease that you needed in order to like really make it through FIT. And for those who are not familiar, Stacey and I did the fashion design program all the way through. So our associates was in fashion design as well as our bachelor's. And so for those who don't know, that means that you are taking upwards of 7 to 8 classes per semester.
I took 10.
Girl, I think the most I took was probably 9. So you saying you took 10 is crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't learn that was abnormal until like after I got out of college. I was like, yeah, I'm taking 10 classes. I would talk to my friends that were like going to like, more of like liberal art schools and things like that. I swear all I know is fashion school. But anyways, and they would be like, yeah, my class load is heavy, blah, 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 blah. And so like, we never really got into the throes of like how many classes we were really taking. But
Girl, they was taking like 2 to 3 classes.
Oh, 5 was the max they were allowed? 5.
And then their classes were like 45 minutes each or something like that.
At the time, I had a friend that was going to Smith College. Smith College is an all-women's college that like literally says they are opting out of being Ivy League, based on their principles. And listen, sis, the max they were allowed was 5 classes each semester. And they definitely weren't taking that. I was just like, for real? And it was like after we graduated that I actually was like, yeah, no, like I was taking 10 and people were 10? I'm like, damn near almost every semester. They're like,
yeah. No, for real. I was in FIT and every time a break came, somebody would ask me to come up to their school. They would be in Buffalo, Syracuse, be like, yo, come up, it's going to be lit. There's parties, there's this and that. And I'm like, unless your school got sewing machines that you could sneak me in to use, I'm not going nowhere.
I get it.
This break is strictly, I have to do my midterm project.
Yes.
Okay. It was always like that. And then when you're supposed to be home with family, chilling, whatever, no, you're in the school building. Everybody else is back home, wherever the hell in, the Midwest that is. And us commuter students, we're in FIT every day of break till 12 till 2 a.m. sewing our lives away because we got to get that ish done before school start again. Like, I missed out on so much of what people say is like the college life, the college experience, because I went to FIT and I'm already like an in-state resident, a New Yorker.
Yeah,
So
even worse, as New Yorkers, if you're in state or if you're in the city, you're commuting. That already
yes,
takes away from college experience. I
yes,
feel like for me, that was one of, I can't say regrets because technically speaking, I went to school for free, but I do wish that I
clock
had
it.
dormed. What'd you say, honey?
I said clock it. Yeah.
Yeah, like personally, I really do wish that I dormed because I could tell the difference in the connections that the students made. It took me a way longer time to connect and actually find like a actual group of friends that I was comfortable with at
I
my
would agree.
at FIT. I didn't find true friends outside of people that I went to high school with because there's a trickle down from our high school straight into FIT for people who decided
Yes.
to take fashion more serious. But yeah, like I think I didn't find my clan and my like true group of friends until my senior year.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
found I had Neville, who is a mutual friend of ours, who's been my friend since high school, and then I studied abroad while I was at FIT. I did my final semester of my associates in Florence, in Italy. And
Yeah.
through staying there, I connected with another mutual friend of ours now. Her name is Tiffany. But other than that, I ain't had no friends. The kids at FIT was scary in my block. Everybody else sounded like they were nice. But your first, what is it, Vanessa? Your first year or just the first, or is it the whole associates program that you run with one block?
The whole associates program, everybody running in the same specialty.
But I mean the blocks, like the class blocks. Remember, well, I don't know if it was the same for you, but when I initially started at FIT, there were blocks. So, like, in the blocks, you would have draping on one specific day. You would have, that class is usually broken up into two. So you would have those on a specific day. You would have powder making on specific days. But that was the same block that people had to register into. So there was block A would say draping on Tuesdays, block B had draping on Wednesdays, and block C had draping on Thursdays.
I think I may know what you're talking about. Was it like a pre-made schedule, kind of like a
Yes,
mock?
yes.
Like they'll be
Like a
like, "Hey, this is what you
prefix.
can do."
Yes,
However,
yes.
when you get out there and have to register, you can kind of do what you want. I think I faintly recall that. However, that's not something I did. I was taking so many classes, especially like my first year at FIT. I was taking so many classes that I was like, okay, I just need to do what I can get. I have to do what works best for my schedule because on top of that, I was going to school and then I was working at at the beginning of my at the beginning of FIT, I was working at American Eagle. And then also, I was slinging prom dresses every May. What is it, from February to June? I was slinging prom dresses for money. So I was selling dresses, I was going to work, and I was going to school full time.
You was
So I like
better
to
than
say I
me.
had 3 jobs.
You was better than me. I
Yeah, that's why I
refuse.
was looking rough.
I refuse. I was like,
Yeah.
these classes are absolutely insane because I think a serious detail that we're leaving out right now is the fact that with FIT, because it is a SUNY school, so it's a State University of New York school, it requires you to do typical state requirements that like liberal arts
Yes.
colleges and things like that are doing. So on top of us having to take all of our core major classes, specifically in reference to fashion design, we also had to take very specific like English, math, science requirements. Mind you, there are also specific science requirements for fashion design itself. Then you also
Mhm.
have to take gym, for example. I got to college and found out I had to take gym. I was hurt. I was like, you can't be serious. Isn't that the point of leaving high school? So you don't got to take gym?
I did not take gym. I think the closest thing to gym I took at F.I.T was like this history of ballet dance class.
But that's what you have to do. Credit. They turn gym into a dance class. They turn gym into yoga classes. Mine was an Afro-Caribbean dance class. And then I did tennis.
I think you didn't hear. I did a history of ballet class for gym.
Wait, you didn't have to do anything physically?
No.
Girl.
Yeah,
I'm out. We can't relate.
Yeah, no. My stuff was I took a history of ballet for gym credit. Don't know how that happened. I don't know how you didn't have to, but that's what I've never seen the gym at F.I.T. I swear to God, I've never seen it. Some schools didn't even do any of the liberals. They was straight major focused. And that wasn't the case at F.I.T. We took everything. Mm-hmm. But not only that, like our design classes were like 3 hours long. You know,
wasn't draping classes like 6?
Huh?
Draping was 6, wasn't it?
6 hours. Okay, yes. Our classes were 6 hours, but they were broken up into 2 days.
Yes.
Right? So it'll be like a draping or pattern making class. It'll be 3 hours, but you had 3 hours on Tuesday and 3 hours on Thursday. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there'll be a rare time where it'd be like a big block where it's like 3 hours from 9 to 12 and then 3 hours again from 2 to 5. You know, but you always make sure that you had a break in there. It was exhausting. And that transition from high school to college with all of that time, it was crazy. So I want to segue into the kind of your emotions about fashion ahead of graduation. How did you feel about fashion? How did you feel about walking into the industry potentially? And like, how did your momentum feel?
Before graduating, I mean, I feel like I was in very different headspaces in my associates versus my bachelor's.
Right.
I think during my associates, like my freshman year, fashion school scared me, to be honest, especially coming from a predominantly Black public school. Coming to college was a culture shock for a bunch of different reasons. One being one of the handful of Black kids in the school. Also being way more knowledgeable than the rest of our classmates because of our experiences in high school and majoring in fashion design already, and also just knowing all the tricks of the trade. Basically, we left high school certified to go into the industry. It's just that by that time, nobody was looking at our certifications. You needed that degree. But I want to say my freshman year, I was kind of nervous about fashion. I knew I wanted to be a designer. I knew I wanted to push through it. But it was kind of like, is this for me? You know, like it feels like it's an industry I'm always going to be uncomfortable in, feeling like a sore thumb or like the odd one out in the room. And then I was also very worried about the cattiness of the industry because my block was very catty compared to the others. I saw some things. However, I want to say in my sophomore year, I got the chance to go abroad. And that changed my perception of the world entirely. One of my best decisions yet, and something I would recommend for any and everyone. Even if you don't like where you end up, at least you'll know something different about the world. And that opened my eyes to more, I would say, like avant-garde, kind of like being more open to like building different concepts and things like that. That's not something that I feel was pushed heavily at F.I.T. in New York. I feel like that really broadened my horizons and made me feel like, okay, I could be a fashion designer that isn't just making cookie cutter clothing. Boom, there we go. Because I felt like F.I.T. was kind of heavy on the technical side and like punching out behind the scenes workers, you know? anybody else that you saw as a big name in fashion, except for a handful, would be coming from Parsons or coming from, Central St. Martin's or something, far, far away. Or very much so more
and design
expensive.
focus.
Yes, and private and very much so more expensive. So I would say after I came back in my junior year, I would say I was more excited. I also had a professor from the UK that ran a class that really pushed forward that avant-garde thinking, that conceptualizing and pushing yourself into different realms and designing based off of personal topics and like really making design art. So that really lit my fire and got me very excited as well in reference to design. And so at that point, I'm still like, I'm gonna do this. Your girl gonna be a designer.
Yeah. And I would say, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, honey.
I would say I feel the same. I feel similarly. My experience was, I was very excited, but I still had the same concerns that you had when you said you first came into F.I.T. Very cautious because you're going from a predominantly Black school to now a predominantly white school. I think that I had a certain sense of pride and confidence because I had the experience that I had with fashion ahead of time. However, I did notice very early on that the curriculum did not stray too far away from its initial intended purpose, which was to pump out factory workers to work in like Flatiron District, Garment District, and like Triangle Shirtwaist Factory, all these, things of the early 1900s that, existed in the United States at the time. Manufacturing used to be here. And so if you needed garment workers, they were born and bred here. Actually, our high school was one of the first places where garment workers went to get training. It's a 10-floor high school now, but it was a 10-floor school. And F.I.T. actually got its start on the top floors of said school before it became the university that you know it to be today.
Yes.
So when you mentioned that, like, our classmates or even some of the people outside of F.I.T. that went to other schools, Central St. Martin's or Parsons, and they had a different experience, I found myself to be a little bit envious of the experience they had because they truly got to focus on cultivating their design mind, their art, their artsy mindset, and kind of delve deeper into who they are as creative beings and finding ways to cultivate those emotions into their work, and then not having to focus on, you need to know construction, this and that technical stuff, when at the end of the day you're going to outsource it. So
gosh,
it's like they focused on what was most important. Yeah,
that hit so hard. Because they're going to outsource it. Yes.
Even now, as I work on starting my own brand, I'm just like, I don't want to pattern make. I know how to pattern make. I know how to analyze it, sure. So ain't nobody gonna play me, but I'm gonna outsource it.
There were students at Parsons, from what I've heard from fellow classmates who I went to high school with, that ended up going to Parsons. There were some students there that had their design concepts sewn by someone else. They would pay someone to execute their designs.
Correct. And for their final term grade.
Yeah, and that was allowed, from what I heard at least. And it's just like, at the end of the day, that is what you're going to be doing in the industry. You're coming up with concepts. I have yet to be in a room where design is going on and somebody's draping on a dress form. And I've done high end, I've done off price, I've done contemporary, in between. It's not happening.
It's not. Yeah. So when we talk about the momentum before graduation, I think that you and I are aligned on the fact that, like, there was a little bit more excitement, even just a little bit more scared, excitement or even anxiety before heading into the industry. But like we kind of knew that we were heading there. For me, I was very stern I remember very early on being very stern that like I didn't want to work for anybody when I got out of school. If professors asked me, who's your favorite designer? I didn't have one. Who do you look up to? Who's your I don't have one.
I didn't have one either.
Yeah, like everyone would say, oh, like a Zach Posen or Margilla. And then like, I don't care about those people because I don't see myself in them.
Initially, I would have said, like, when I first got to F.I.T, I would have been like, oh, I love Alexander McQueen. And then eventually I would probably say, oh, Tom Brown. And then I would be like, okay, well, I think I settled on Margilla, I would say, because I started to resonate personally with like their deconstructed clothing and things and the concepts. That's what it was for me, the concepts. That's what I got into my junior year, and that's what I applied to my thesis. I would say by the time I got to senior year, I had a really good senior year, I would say. Did it make me feel prepared for the industry? No, absolutely not. I would say by my senior year, I was very happy with my capabilities and how I had pushed myself forward in my thinking in reference to design and concept building and colors and the skills that I had like obtained. However, as far as applying them to the industry, finding work, I was not confident about that at all. So F.I.T required us, I'm sorry, honey.
No, go ahead.
F.I.T required us to have one internship out of the 4 years we were there. You're only required to do one internship, and the requirement was to be met in your final semester. Wow, we spent all of this grand time doing English, math, science, whatever, great, cool. There needed to be a bigger push for actually getting work experience, because by the time I was graduating, these jobs are looking for people with 1-2 years experience. And the only way for you to have that while you're in college and taking 10 classes is if you were required to take an internship as a class. I had classmates who were taking internships of their own free will here and there, and they were smart. Where they got that information from, I have no idea. However, I was like, I need to finish school.
Yeah. Sometimes it's on a whim. I got a fashion jobs while in school through summer youth.
When I found out you did that, I was mind blown.
Yeah. And so I never had a job in fashion where I wasn't paid, because I was very stern on, I'm not going to work if I'm not getting paid. There's nothing on this planet Earth that is so important for me to learn that I'm going to go show up every day and not get paid and get treated like,
I feel you on that. I mean, my work, in my associates, I would say, what I would do is I would work during the summertime. I would work as a seamstress and a pattern maker for a woman who went to our high school. She went to F.I.T, but she did not finish because she dropped out and she started her own business. And she like loves spandex. Shout out to Butch Diva, Tiffany Rhodes. But she would make clothing for like performers, wrestlers. She's done stuff for Little Kim. I don't know if you guys remember a little while back, Nicki Minaj, she had these like sailor caps. She started that for her and things like that. And so, I would work for her during the summertime. And gosh, honey, was that a great time, because getting paid off the books was nice. I had a 2-hour commute to Brooklyn, which was treacherous, but well worth the coin.
Yeah, I also did similar work. But to sum up both of our experiences, I think that we can say that we're really putting in the grind to kind of have a good outcome post-grad. But let's talk about post-grad now, and how maybe about the time when we finally decided like we're going to put this down. We're going to put the sewing machine, the scissors down, I'll start off by saying that like as soon as I finished school and like graduation came, and it was a very strange time because pandemic and all those things. But by the time graduation came and I was like, oh, like I don't have to sew for a grade anymore. This is crazy. When I tell you I did not touch that sewing machine for about a good year and a half, 2 years. It collected dust, it collected clothes, it collected anything but a project because I left it in the dust afterward. It felt good to not be worried about it. It's very hard, bittersweet feeling. It's a very bittersweet feeling as an artist because this is your craft and you love it so much. And I've loved fashion since I was a child. However, I got to a point where it's like this was also the root of every single bit of my stress for a majority of my 20s and at the time. And so having the opportunity where it's like, it's no longer required of you. You can be still. And actually knowing what it's like to be still, it changed everything. It really did. Yeah. So also I will mention that I did have a gap year in my time at F.I.T. I took 2 years. I did my 2 years, got my associates, had a gap year because I had dropped the class in my associates. I had to pick it back up. It was only available, blah, 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 logistics. And then so I had to drop a year and then take it again later. So that gap year also was a taste of what it's like to work without having to be in school, which is something I'd never had to do before because I worked all throughout college. And that feeling was something you don't, I wouldn't trade that feeling for the world, knowing that all I got to do wherever I'm showing up is I'm making money. Yeah, that was my priority at that time. So putting down the craft, it's a bittersweet feeling. How about you, Stacy?
I remember when you told me you were going to take that year off. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I told you to do it, right?
I think that you were indifferent. You were like, you told me specifically, I recall, you said you don't know anybody who's ever said that they regret that year off.
There we go.
Everybody's people always take it. Some people are like, nah, don't take it. Some people are like, yeah, take it. But at the end of the day, you've never heard anyone say anything bad about that year off.
Yes. So I was like, because I know that I wouldn't have had the balls to do so.
Yeah.
I would not have had the balls to do so just because of what had been drilled in me
to keep going.
Yes, to keep going. And you must go to school and you must get a degree and you must be on time. And, in my head, that would be, you got held back or something, at that time. However,
college is so different.
It is. And that's the beauty in it. College is not high school. You're not obligated to be there by law. You could drop out of high school technically, but you're not supposed to be there per se. Like, that is a choice. It's a full-blown choice for you to go to college and for you to pursue something that way. And
correct.
When you said that you were taking a year off, again, like anybody that I knew that said they took a year off, there were no regrets. They were able to recover from whatever burnout they suffered from the year before or years before. And
suffered.
Yeah. I had some friends Tiffany, for example, I had a friend who completed all her liberals at another college and came to F.I.T. and got to have the experience of just studying fashion. Imagine that.
I didn't know you could do that.
Yes, you can complete your liberals elsewhere and come to F.I.T. just to study fashion. Yes, you'll have to run its full course, but you'll just be doing fashion.
Wow.
That's a beautiful experience.
Yeah. So when did you put down the craft? When did you put down the scissors and the measuring tape?
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't fully remember because I believe that I was sewing and doing personal projects. When did I put down the scissors? I would say me putting down the scissors, like seriously, like putting down the scissors happened more so recently for me.
Okay. So the pandemic did not play a part in this?
No, not for me. Because remember, for me, the pandemic took me out of work. I was already in the workforce at that time.
That's right.
Yeah. So at that time, I was at Derek Lam working as an assistant tech designer. And actually, no, that is a lie. I had just gotten a new job. I was at Derek Lam for probably like a year and a half, maybe a year and some change. And I was over it. That was my first fashion experience. I did not enjoy myself. That was my first taste of people taking fashion way too serious, which was something that was always very different about me, especially in reference to like my classmates and my friends and stuff like that. Like, one, I could lean on my ability to work faster because I've been doing it longer, but also I would always let them know F.I.T is not going to kill me. Fashion is not going to kill me. We're here from freaking 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. every day. I'm leaving. I'm going to go and visit my then boyfriend and get up out of here and go do what it is that I want to do for a couple of days and come back and work just like we have been before. But I would say during COVID, I would use my machine to make things still, because at that point in time, I could just do it for myself. If I wanted to make a cute little outfit because I had nothing to do all day, I could do that. And that brought me back to what I enjoyed about fashion. One of my greatest joys is being a creative. I think that is the closest thing to godliness. And during COVID, I could sit and create whatever. And something that COVID brought back to me was literally creating whatever. Like, there was no class, there was no professor to report to. It didn't have to look like anything that anybody else was thinking of but me. It had to fit me. I got to have fun again. And I also dabbled in other things.
So you kind of had like a different experience than I when it came to post-fashion school depression. I know that it probably manifested itself a little later for you. Whereas for me, it manifested right away.
Wait. No. Okay. I can't say, maybe I'm getting a little off track because we're skipping to COVID. After I graduated, I was very sad. Very, very sad. I was coming up off of a high from school, had a great time. Like, F.I.T was tough, yes, but I loved my experience. I'd do it over again because at that time I was focused, I was in it, and that's just what I was doing. And there was always something to do. I was always at school. I enjoyed that. And my experiences studying abroad, all of that, beautiful. Wouldn't change it for the world. But after graduating, those feelings of being unprepared were confirmed. It took me 7 months to find a job. And I know that doesn't sound like a long time compared to others. I have peers where it took them years to find a job in the industry, actually designing and doing what they studied. But during that time, I was so nervous. I was so sad. I'm coming out of college. I did well. As far as fashion design, I won the Critics Award.
You did everything right.
Huh? Yeah, basically.
You did everything right. Basically. And you still weren't prepared.
Yes, I did everything right. I won awards. I was getting interviews, this, and a third. And really and truly, it didn't turn into anything because I wasn't equipped with how to turn that into something, how to, further myself with those accomplishments. I just graduated. I got my degree. I got my award. I still have the plaque, or my parents do. And that was that. My internship experience wasn't enough because it wasn't a great internship. The career center.
When you say that it's like, it seems like 7 months is such a short time because other people, took years to find work. I want to highlight that like people in other industries that study for other things at other schools, not fashion related, a lot of times they are accepting an offer upon graduation.
Yeah. That is very true. You go to a heavy hitter school like F.I.T. Everybody knows about F.I.T. you would think people are waiting to hire its students. And that was not the case. Any friend, well, actually, it was one friend of mine who had a job straight out of college, maybe two. One of them was an award winner, actually. And another one was a close friend of mine who, when I say the talent, and they were also very much so conceptual. And they had a internship at Tom Brown, right? And at this internship, they were literally being sucked dry. Like, it was tough. And then on top of that, doing our thesis was tough. However,
yes,
their talent and the fact that they were not a technical F.I.T robot got them that internship and also landed them a job. My friend, beast with the designs, their thesis was. And, but they got hired straight out of college, but that job experience was so fucking horrible.
Yeah.
So horrible.
I think,
for them.
You know, it's hard. It's not easy, and it's not normal to take so long to find work. And I feel like that's something that's typically not addressed. However, in that time, and I'm curious to know what you did learn from that experience. And I think you kind of touched on it, that, you know, you kind of just had to figure out how to find work. But I'm curious to know how you learned, what you learned about yourself in that time, and then like how you overcame this struggle. And I'd like to talk about my own as well.
I learned that I was hungry. I learned that, I mean, I don't think I ever learned that. I just knew that there was no other option. At the end of the day, one thing my dad always said was, we'll support you in what you're going to do. Especially if we don't know nothing about what you're trying to do, but make sure that it's lucrative. I did get to see that fashion could be lucrative. I just had to figure out how it was going to be lucrative for me. I knew that I did not want to be sewing prom dresses, because dealing with people on that personal level while making them clothes, I tried it, not a big fan. And I went to school, I studied abroad. I was very nervous that it wasn't going to pan out, but in my head, that also was not really an option. It had to. I was going to have to figure it out. And so I actually got my first job through a temp job. My first job was through a temp agency. Very odd. What's funny is the same building that I started my career in technically is the same building that I'm in now, working for a different company. And I was temping for production, and really and truly in the position, I was just organizing papers basically for a design company. A woman who worked in production. They were really sweet, really great, very helpful. And my contract was up, and I just decided to ask everybody if they knew somebody that was hiring. I ran into this guy, I was showing everyone my portfolio. They were even trying to get me a job at the company, but things got kind of weird with the recruiting agency. You know, they love to take them some coin if they hire you. And guy was named Eric Bell, who actually works at the company that I'm at now. And he saw my portfolio and he was just like, Stacy, you don't belong here. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, you don't belong here, honey. He was like, these designs? He's like, nah. He's like, you need to get up out of here. You need to get up out of here fast. And he's like, I have a friend and I'm going to put you in connection with him. He has a position for tech. I know it's not design, but it'll get you into some different rooms. And he connected me with him and I got the job. And that's how I got my first actual job in the industry. And it wasn't even in design, it was technical design.
You know, for me, post-grad, like I said, I didn't touch the machine at all, but I had been working in fashion the entire time I was in school. So while I was in school, I told you I had those summer youth jobs that kind of turned into real jobs. So I had worked at Be Michael America, and I was a pattern maker's assistant. And that was during school. I also worked at Pantora for a majority of my career. And it took me through graduation, that job. And I got that because I did my summer youth at Pantora, this small business bridal shop in Brooklyn. And so when I finally graduated, I was like, okay, I'm working in fashion, but I'm not doing anything that I necessarily got my degree for. And I feel like I was ready for responsibility, and I was ready to kind of see where things could take me. The landscape of the world had already changed. And while I did not want to necessarily run the rat race, I was like, okay, something in this plan has to obviously change. So I have to get up and, put my, work boots on and get running. So and you will remember this vividly. So I didn't overcome my post-fashion school depression. This going into corporate was like another symptom of post-fashion school depression, I like to say. Right? Because the Lulu is the Salulu. So I went to Stacy when I started looking for my first corporate gig. I had obviously already worked in fashion, but I'm like, I need more, but I'm going to walk in at a different level than most of the people who are also walking in that graduate at the same time as me, right? So I knew in my mind, I'm like, I will not accept the same price they are getting. Because I seen what they were paying assistant designers. I was like, oh no, I won't be taking that. So I remember going to Stacy. I was like, Stacy, I have not done corporate, but like right now, I cannot afford to make anything less than $65,000. I do not want anything less than that. And Stacey was like, I don't know, Vanessa, you gotta kind of work with us here, because
girl, you had me shook. But I'm like,
because you're like, you're new experience. Yeah, and like technically, to corporate people, you had no experience if you've never been for a large corporation. But I had experience.
You had the experience, though.
I had experience. I had at the time maybe about 4 or 5 years experience.
But it wasn't your experience. It was we just needed to reword your resume, and that was it.
Exactly. It became a tale of rewording your resume, right? And so I was able to land me a job. It was kind of tech focused, just like how you had. And that's where I landed, and I made that 65 that I was looking for at the time, because I was not accepting anything less. Like literally, I was bobbing and weaving. I didn't get any offers before that job. Promise, because everybody would look at me like I had 3 eyes. Told my son, "You want how much? You are looking for how much? Why?
But at that point in time, I really and truly think that it was not your experience in reference to that. Because like you said, you were working throughout college, right? And you weren't just doing just like retail or nothing like that. Like you were at fashion companies. So that means you have, and honestly, when you're at a smaller company, but it's like bridal or something like that, that's considered more higher end, and you're also considered to have more, you're considered to wear more hats, But I do think,
but when you do a small company, it's a name game.
Yes.
If they don't know the name, they be like,
that is very true. But I will say that when you did come with your resume, I was like, girl, you have plenty of experience. It's just the words. That's it. Because really and truly, you was doing the right thing in college, girl.
Yeah.
You were. You were doing the right thing. It's just that your experience wasn't called an internship. But that's because you was like, I want to get paid.
Yeah. And the time that I did not pick up the sewing machine and did not touch the sewing machine, I swear I was creatively dead for years. And I'm still working on reviving myself in this time today. I think that it's been a total of 5 years. I've picked up, what are you going to say?
It's exhausting. I'm sorry.
It is.
You were well due the break, and being tired is exhausting. Fashion school was exhausting. Taking so many classes for so many years and having to spend so much time in a classroom with the clinking of machines and the rolling wheels that are stiff and filled with yarn of dress forms
but
is
I feel
exhausting.
Like I don't give myself enough. I don't forgive myself for how long it took me to get to a point where I'm like ready to be back to who I was before, of the same mindset of who I was before. Because I feel like 5 years is a long time to be like, nah. Like, hell nah, I'm not touching a machine or whatever. And I've done projects here and there, for as long as there's a coin involved, my name is on it. But but like I definitely feel like I hadn't been, like, I was creatively dead. And in that time, I learned about myself that I'm also, while I'm creatively dead, I also freaking hate running the rat race. I hate working for other people, and I don't like to perform the song and dance that is corporate fashion. Because it's very draining and exhausting. I think those are some things I learned about myself. I learned that I'm of an entrepreneurial mindset all the time. I'm always thinking about how to make money, this, that, and third, and how to get money. And so even me coming to you, asking you like, hey, help me with my resume, it's even like, that was like even the buildings of a business, the business that is me.
But those are things that you had to learn.
So like, those are things I'm saying that I learned.
I feel as though saying that you were creatively dead doesn't give you credit, because you were trying to figure out how you want to go about being creative. And sometimes you can't be doing all that creative shit at the exact same time. You already know your medium, you already have your skills, you know how to execute, you know what it takes to design something. Now you're in the industry doing research, trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to get this brand going? And the best way to see that is to get a job.
Work for other
get
people.
A job in the industry, even if it's one or two.
True.
Like, just let me see how things work. Let me run my mouth a little bit. Let me ask some questions and get up out of there.
I think the hardest part was the way that I saw the people around me experiencing the fashion industry. I was living on the perceived experience of the peers around me and how they were experiencing fashion. From Instagram, it looked like everybody was still designing as if they never dropped the ball. And other people, while they didn't choose the corporate race, they chose to like run alongside other people who are just kind of working for themselves and figuring it out and making a name for themselves. And I was like a little envious, I'm not gonna hold you, because I felt like this is also a circumstance kind of thing, because like I also had a lot of bills that I had to deal with as someone who has been working since they were 16, had worked all through college, also used credit card to pay for a lot of college needs, what a girl wants and needs, and then now having to pay that back, but then also moving out of my parents' place. And so it felt like I couldn't have as much fun or have those learning-esque experiences. I had to come in as a professional, and granted I was, but I didn't have time to play small and la-di-di-di-da. So the perception of, I just feel like everyone else around me was having more fun with their fashion experience initially than I was, but that was my perception. And I think the reality, when I talk to other people, they're actually more impressed with me than I am them. No tea, no shade. But
comparison is the thief of all joy, honey.
Okay, it was a thief of my joy for a long time. And then I realized I was doing a lot of comparison myself to my peers, other people in the industry that are working, that I follow on Instagram, giving them an envious double tap, because I was like, dang, like I wish that I was dressing some celebrity. I wish that I was,
running around
on some red carpet.
Listen, that's the thing about fashion. The glitz and the glamour will deceive anyone. People,
because they ain't getting paid.
Yeah, not a dime. just excited to be in the room and post a picture on Instagram, and it ain't paying them nothing because ain't nobody was monetized then. Okay,
exactly.
Let's be real. First of all, social media is always just going to show you the best of someone's life.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, they showing you the best of the worst if they showing you something they think is bad. Okay.
But I wanted that and to be paid.
Yeah.
And I realized those didn't leave it. Those don't live on the same street.
It wasn't gonna happen. Period, point blank. All that glitz and glamour shit, people do not get paid for that. There are tons of stylists that are running around looking for a check that they was owed 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, because the name of the game is you're in the room. You have the look.
Exposure. We're going to tag you on Instagram.
Yes, and people will know you were in the room. That'll get you something.
Yeah, girl, but who cares about when you click see more in the caption, girl, and your name is all the way at the bottom? Told my assistant.
Come on now.
That didn't pay nothing. The rent is $2,000.
No, and I peeped that. How did I become aware of the fact that stylists and things like that had to run through the mud for that?
I think probably it could be that you worked with people who were kind of running alongside those same people.
Yes, some classmates.
We don't have to name their names, yeah.
Some classmates, I would say, more so some classmates from high school, I would say,
correct,
who didn't necessarily go the college route, or they did it later, or they went to like a school that didn't have as big of a name, but they went to college, got the degree so that they could move around. No. I would hear the stories and look, in high school, I used to assist my best friend who was assisting another woman who was a stylist. And I and that was my first experience with actually doing the work. And then I started to hear more about it. But it was grunt work. She wasn't paying us. We were just excited to be in the room. And guess what? Adults get excited to be in rooms too.
Yeah.
And they will show up to not be paid.
Yeah. But that didn't perk me up. And I knew that wouldn't perk me up and that's when I realized that being in the room wasn't enough for me. And being at the desk, chained to the desk, wasn't enough for me either. It kind of looks like, okay, well, I have to make my own room now. Yeah. And that is now, and then when I make that room, I need to figure out how that room can be lucrative and, fill that room up with money so that maybe I don't have all the high profile clients, maybe I don't have all the things that you may see as Instagrammable, but you know what? My needs are taken care of. I don't have to wake up when somebody says wake up.
You don't need that to make money. At the end of the day,
I'm in control of my time. And that's what I've learned, that that's what I think I want the most.
You don't need the biggest celebrity in your showroom to make money. 9 times out of 10, they are wearing the things that you see them wearing for free.
And it was gifted, and they got to return it by the end of the night, dry cleaned.
Or not. In this conversation, I am actually starting to realize that my depression in reference to being in design and fashion design and moving into the industry, it started in college. And I'm talking about something totally separate of being prepared for the industry upon graduating from F.I.T. Like I had mentioned before, I was the one in my friend group that was like, I'm out. I need a couple of days. I'm about to lose my mind. I've been here every day until 2 a.m. And I don't mean through the 5 days of the week. I mean 7 days of the week. On the weekends, I was there from 8 a.m. till 2 a.m. with no breaks in between, no class, And for me, that's when I started to realize that we were taking this shit too serious. F.I.T was heavily technical for me and for you, I'm sure. Those were skills that we already had. I really wanted to go to college to learn more about design and concepts and getting to the artsy-fartsy part of things. And, I was enjoying doing my thesis and things like that, but that was because of my own personal experience with that. My whole class, like the energy in that room was so heavy majority of the time, unless we were working in the rooms by ourselves and just having fun until 2 a.m. doing our work together. But as far as being in class, having to do reviews, having to give a status update to our professor, that was not pleasant for majority of my classmates. And I can completely understand why. That experience was pleasant for me, not because I won the awards that last semester, but because my professor wasn't on my back. He wasn't concerned for me. And I wasn't giving the impression that he needed to be. And I was very solid in my thesis, and I didn't want to talk too much about it. And he got that. He also felt pretty confident in my thesis, apparently, because even with our critic, Zach Posen, he told me he didn't like my project. He's like, I'm not really getting it. I think da da da. And I was like, okay, well, me and my professor looked at each other afterwards, and he was like, don't change nothing. I was like, I wasn't planning on it. I know what my concept is. I get it. He thought it was sad. He chose it. I won. And who knows if it was even him. And again, with the veil of fashion, we never saw him again.
Yeah. Mind you, you worked closely with him for like weeks at a time for the most important part of your college career, and then they disappear into the mist.
Yes, no help, no connection afterwards.
Nothing.
Win the Critics Award. But honestly, I can't say that that's every critic winner's experience, because some critics were very involved. Us, we had a celebrity critic. Again, the fantasy veil. Oh, Zach Posen, blah, blah, blah. And listen, I'm not
that was accolades for the school. That did nothing for y'all.
Exactly. I'm not going to say that I wasn't happy to win the award. I wasn't proud. Of course I was. However, as far as mentorship, didn't get that. I used to work at the Gap. Zach Posen is the head of Gap now. You think I ever heard from Zach Posen again? You think he about to bring me back? No. And I didn't leave the Gap on bad terms. They did a massive round of layoffs. And so, but back to the whole depression thing about graduating or just moving into the industry, period.
How it manifests now?
I would say it was a gradual process. And at this point, I'm done. I really, really, really and truly don't want much more to do with the fashion industry. I don't. I am personally a very creative person. I think that I have literally moved from the different facets in between. I've moved from categories. I've moved between gender. I have moved, I've done huge
You've
company.
done so many.
I've done small company. I've done small company, mass market. I've done Missy. I've done women's wear. I've done menswear. I'm doing boys and menswear together right now. And at every company, there has been a certain level of misery that has to do with not liking what I'm designing, not being involved in design the way I want to be, or, the politics of the office. Even being in at a company that caters to off price, you'd be shocked at the politics. Worse off, you're at a company that don't really want to pay people, and again, doesn't pour into the community that is making them their money.
They don't even pour into the product.
Machine.
Yeah.
It doesn't, there's nothing fulfilling about this for me. And honestly, another thing on my personal journey is that fashion was always supposed to be a stepping stone. So that also made me sad to realize that I had completely stepped away from what the goal was. For me, it was supposed to be a stepping stone and a way to get me into rooms with
The easiest way to
people.
get lost is to think that there's more to see. Yes.
Right. It was supposed to get me into rooms with musicians. I wanted to make clothing for people who are on stage in hopes to get behind the scenes, in hopes to start songwriting, in hopes to make it back to my very first love. I honed in on fashion design because I wasn't going to be a starving artist. I also wanted to get out of my parents' house. I also had bills that I wanted to take on to pay. I've always craved independence. Weird kid, I know. However, that's what I
Same.
wanted for myself. So I locked in on fashion because that was the way in which for me to make money. And it was another way to create. My main thing is creating. And I want to create in the mediums in which I enjoy. However, when you bring making money into those things, there are certain creative jobs that, listen, it's going to suck the life out of it. And again, the politics are just too much. So as far as post-grad depression, I am actively trying to remove myself from the industry at this point. I do want to tap into freelancing because, especially after talking with you, Vanessa, I know that there can be a different realm to it where I would have more control over my time, deal with less politics, and just be able to design or complete my project. But even in designing, there's so much that goes into it that is just like, oh my God, I wish I was doing what people thought we were doing. Coloring, picking colors, drawing
And
pretty
going home.
things, and going home.
But there's a liberation when you're freelancing. And that's why I didn't know that was for me until I jumped into it. Because when I was leaving my full-time gig, and then the next boat that passed me was a temp to perm gig. And I just remember applying and interviewing for full-time jobs and not getting them because they would try to find a way to say that, oh, like they just wanted an excuse to not pay me what I was looking for in terms of compensation. And then trying to say like it's my fault because, oh, like you don't have enough experience. Gag is I had more than enough experience. They just did not want to pay me. And so I got to a point where I was like, you know what, let me just give this freelance thing a try. Like at this point, I had nothing to lose, right? I told myself I just need out. And so jumping into freelance was like, oh, like, okay, when you go in, some people might have you think that the expectations are higher because the expectation is that like you shouldn't really need a learning curve because you're coming in as a temp. But that's a silly thought because while I have experience doing tech design in other companies, every company does things so differently. And like it can be really hard to find your footing depending on the company, how organized they are, how willing the employees are to even
Talk
train
about
you,
PLM.
you know. Yeah, like it's just the systems, PLMs, like there's so many different things. So like what I've learned though, for me, I like this because I'm like, okay, well, I don't get benefits from you. Secondly, I get paid by the hour and I told you how much I want to be paid by the hour. And it's very handsome compared to what what you were asking for on the yearly spectrum divided down into an hourly rate, right?
And
Because the understanding
Jesus,
is I won't be here long,
and
right?
as a freelancer, I am under the impression, correct me if I'm wrong, you're wearing the hat that they hired you for, and that's it.
Yes, I'm not here to, you know, break ground. I'm not here to shift and flip the table and improve. My version of improving the workplace is simply carrying the load that you don't want to. So
Yes.
they literally, I come in and they like when they should be treating me like, you know, a counterpart, they're treating me like an assistant because they're just like, it's easier to just give you things to measure all day and then put in numbers than it is to like give you the responsibility of like, oh, well, talk to the factory, talk to this. And some places do let me do those things, right? Some places don't let me do those things. At the end of the day, I don't really care what you give me to do because at the end of the day, I'm still getting paid. My job is not to scale because where am I scaling to? My job is not to, um, kind of be this groundbreaker that comes in and implements systems when nobody asks me to, because I'm not here full time. This is not an open-ended job for me. Why would I come in and do that if you didn't ask me to do that? I do what you ask me to do every day, and I go home, and that's that.
And
like,
again,
yes, my job
politics.
description is, you said what?
I said again with the politics of being a salaried employee. That's something that is subtracted from the equation for you as a freelancer. When you sign up to take on a salary, you're expected to show up every day, be a team player. And my biggest issue is wear many hats.
Yes.
On the team that for the I low am price. On now, well, barely a team at this point. My manager is older and has a very different approach to the work world than I do. For me, I want to be compensated for my time. I also wanted to be understood that my time is my time. I'm taking my hour lunch. For example, they barely do that.
That's applying value to your time. You value your time.
I value my time. You're not paying me for my lunch. I am legally deserving of my hour lunch with the amount of hours that you want me in this building. You are ensuring that you get that hour of work back based on my hours being basically a 9 to 6.
Yes.
And when it's 6, I'm out. I'm out. It has to be a very pressing matter for me to be there past 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
If those are my hours. And to, and I feel like that's well within my right. It's not, this is not personal. The first thing they're going to remind me of is the fact that this is a business and that they have other things to consider. Well, I am a human being and I have a life and I have other things to consider. I have other things to consider. I need adequate rest. I need adequate time to be at home before I come in for the next day, which is never going to be the case. I live in New York City. I have an hour commute home. I have an hour commute to work every day. I'm getting out at 6. I'm not getting home until a little after 7. What am I supposed to do if I need to be in bed by 9:30 or 10 o'clock in order to feel fully rested for the next day? We're selling our time. We're selling our precious time. And throughout the week, I barely have any time to do anything for myself. And then I'm supposed to cram my responsibilities for just maintaining my space, myself, into the weekend, 2 days. And you want me to spend extra time in the office when I'm not even guaranteed a raise or any improvement in my work situation, my compensation increased, PTO, more sick, nothing but a pat on the back, if that. No,
but they're
and you have to guaranteed wear so your productivity. Many hats. Yes, and you have to wear so many different hats as a salaried employee. As a salaried employee, I'm not just associate designer and just assisting the senior designer and the director. As the associate designer, I'm actually expected to come up with concepts and things like that by myself.
Yeah.
And then
but that's
and then expected to not get any credit for it.
Yeah. And that's why choosing to unsubscribe from that is freeing all in itself, because the moment you place value in your time truly and wholeheartedly, you don't look at any dollar as more valuable than your time. I think the most expensive currency that people try to make you believe isn't valuable is your time. And, as we start to conclude the conversation, I want to kind of drive home that when you are applying for work, there's this certain kind of jargon, when you get a job, when they're like, yeah, so don't steal time, as if the company has a life and they have time and you don't. And so any time you take to rest that isn't productive to the company is stealing from them, when actually you are creating time in your life. You're the only one with time here. An inanimate object does not have time because it doesn't have a life. Okay. And so when you negotiate for a salary or whatever, the thought can't be, oh, this is how much I think my skills should sell for. That's a nice thought, right? But at the same time, it's like, this is time in my life. How much should my life sell for? Because again, you're spending majority of your life at work. There's very little time that you can spend at home, spend sick, spend on vacation at all. They're dictating that time that you can spend living your life. So how much would you sell your life for? Truthfully, for me, it's priceless. There would never be a number I would be comfortable with. However, I will make sure that no matter what number is presented to me, I flip that table and push it right back to them and be like, come harder. Because that's what it's worth and that's what it's about. You need to really, I feel like people really fail to recognize that like money is one of the most invaluable things that we place so much value in, but it's really the time in our life. The time we even take now to have this conversation is so valuable, you know? And so, yeah, this conversation, this time that we're creating right here to have this conversation is so valuable, or I would say invaluable to the people who are receiving it, because you can't put a price on it.
And I would
The information is powerful.
And I would also like to say that I don't think that post-grad depression avoids anyone, especially not in the arts. Well, maybe mostly
it got
not
hands
in
for
the
everybody.
Arts. It very much so, and she gonna put them paws on you. Don't matter who you are. She don't care. She gonna touch you, even if it's just a little bit. Because
that's right.
One thing about working in the arts is you're always going to meet that devil of, guess what? It's not all glitz and glamour. Guess what? The sacrifice that you thought you were going to be making in school and that would be it, and you'd soar and fly high, poof, after you get out. No, like in an industry that is a part of selling fantasy and selling dreams and selling like what they're doing at these companies, they're not just selling you a t-shirt. A lot of these companies, especially the higher end ones, are trying to sell you an experience. And in order to create that expensive experience and visual, there are a lot of heads that are being stepped on and that are never receiving credit for their work. Those things are written in their contracts, their NDAs. You can't work for two companies at the same time if you're a W-2. And when I say that it hits everyone, there's always this moment, I have yet to meet someone who hasn't had it, where they're like, oh shit, I'm not going to get to be as creative as I truly wanted to be in this space. And also, as a creative, you want to find a creative home. And I think something that was sold to me while I was in school is that you'll find your work home. You'll find somewhere where you're comfortable. That also isn't true. I believe that you can find something that is comfortable enough. But of course, you're not going to find a space that checks all boxes. And a lot of the times, I feel like something else that takes away from the yearning that you have to be a creative and wanting to be in these companies and spaces is the fact that it's a business at the end of the day. There isn't much wholesomeness about it, no matter how much a lot of these companies promote being family oriented and blah, 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 blah. The best place for somebody to be in reference to having benefits is going to be at a large corporation 9 times out of 10, you're definitely not getting recognition. You don't have the wiggle room to be super creative and to create this amazing, beautiful thing because there are parameters. You need to make sure that you're meeting your MOQ, make sure that you're meeting yardage, make sure that the factory can actually do what you're doing, make sure it's meeting compliance, make sure that the dyes are safe. There's a lot of restricting factors. So I don't believe that anybody can avoid the post-grad depression, because even when school is stressful, you still have that freedom to create what it is that you want to and what you enjoy and what you feel is beautiful. Once you move into the industry, in pretty much so any aspect other than really creating your own brand and deciding to find your niche customer, which will still eventually dictate the things that you make, that depression is always going to hit, even if it's just a little bit, because you don't have that freedom anymore. Not if you're trying to make your creativity your bread and butter, especially in fashion.
To connect with Stacy, you can find her on all platforms at Selah the Bettah, and you can find Vanessa on Instagram and TikTok at Vanessa X SNF. Thanks for listening.